And our next guest is June Lundgren. June is a psychic medium, animal communicator, healer, nurse, and international author with over 40 years of experience in the paranormal field. As a young child, she communicated with spirits, animals, and angels while living in a secure home with her grandparents. She comes from a long line of women with special gifts. Her grandmother was a psychic medium and helped to tutor her in the use of her gifts. During her early years, she spent 5 years in the military where she trained as a nurse. She lives on a small farm in Oregon City, Oregon, with her son and husband for the past 27 years. She has been in nursing for over 30 years and has been a psychic medium all her life. Some people would call it a curse, but she prefers to think of it as a blessing. Granted, there are times when it can become a pain, more than a gift, I would think, but overall, she would never change it for anything. Over the last 25 years, she has held many conversations with those on the other side. She's constantly learning and taking notes and putting some of the information in her books. Through all the challenges in her life, her faith in God and the love she received from her grandparents has sustained her and kept her sane. She decided that people need to know what God does hear, that He does hear us. He knows what we need, which is not necessarily what we all want or want to hear. She has written 3 books, A Medium's Guide to the Paranormal, Paranormal Encounters, and Paranormal Encounters Book 2. Her new book is out called The Dark Side of Paranormal, and she's a member of a local Northwest paranormal investigative team. You can check out her website, which is very interesting and has a lot of information at mysticconnections.org. Without any further delay, let's get her on the line. June, good evening. Welcome to K-Talk and the Fringe radio show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for taking the time and being here with us tonight. So I scratched the surface of your bio, June, but why don't you let our guests hear it from you? Why don't you give us get a little rundown of your life and what it's like to have these abilities? And I would assume that as a young child, maybe some of these gifts that you have were a little bit scary back then.
Yeah, when I was little, it was almost as soon as I could talk, I would tell my grandmother about, things that I saw. And being that little, it was hard for me to really explain what I was seeing, but she seemed to know and would tell me, about how to tell the good ones from the bad ones.
Right.
And what I was seeing and how to close them off if I didn't want to hear them. And so I kind of grew up with, hearing the other side and learned how to tune them out if I was busy or didn't want to hear them. When I was in school, I would always have to tune them out because I couldn't focus on my schoolwork.
Right.
And that was important for me.
Well, I've had, over the years, I've had different psychics on the show, and I've heard some people, while it's a gift, I believe it's a gift, and it's something that you have to train. I would assume you have to educate yourself. It's a talent that has to always be honed. But I've had a few psychics that have had problems to the fact that the connection with the other side is so strong, turning it off can be very difficult just to try to perform daily life routines.
Yes, it can be really hard to do it, but one thing that helped me, and my grandmother said, if you can learn to meditate, you can learn to build a wall, a structure, imaginary structure, to where you would tune them out when you didn't want to, and then you open the door in the wall when it was okay for them to communicate with you. Ghosts are like kids. Spirits are like kids. They need boundaries and limitations.
Mm-hmm.
They need to understand that I'm at work. You cannot distract me. Being a nurse, you cannot get distracted.
Right.
So I would tell, so they all know that. And my guides and guardians are really good at, when one of them comes, an outside spirit comes and wants to make contact, they all have to go through them before I will deal with them at all. They have to basically vet them.
Right.
And they'll tell them, this is not the time for it. You have to wait till later or whatever. It's odd, but the place I work, There's actually a old pioneer graveyard behind it, so
it's a busy
you know,
place.
it is. So, like I said, you have to learn to tune them out. And I used to work a lot of hospital work, and I just got tired of doing that. And, when I'd have a patient die, seeing the spirit leave the body. And, after 30 years of doing that, it's like, you know what? I'm tired of that. It's time to go in a different direction. So I work clinic work now, so where I don't have to deal with that sort of thing.
It's interesting, Jim. I was looking through your website and looking at your information and stuff. A new program that's on now is called Raising Hope. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to see it, but it's about it has several characters in it, but one of the main characters is put into a coma. He's the head surgeon at this hospital, and while he's in a coma, he's also halfway between the light but he's still here. And
right.
The whole program is kind of now revolving around doctors and nurses working in a hospital where people are essentially, they're trying to save their lives. They're stepping off the table, they're crossing over, and yet they're coming back. And I kind of, in watching that program, find it interesting, but could kind of relate that to with you working in a hospital, the same thing, where you're trying to do your job, but there's a lot of stuff going on around you that probably a lot of other people don't see or even sense.
Yeah, a lot of people don't want to see it. That's half of it. They're afraid of what they'll see. But, you have, I work internal medicine,
Mm-hmm.
so that is a lot of elderly people. And what people don't realize is when a person gets dementia in its advanced stages, you have these moments of absolute clarity mixed in with a lot of time where they don't know you or anything else, and they just become almost vegetative. Well, when they're in the state of almost vegetation, that's when the soul leaves the body. And when it returns to the body, then you get those moments of absolute clarity. Because the soul can slip in and out of the body, and the body can still function for a while, but I find that absolutely fascinating. The first time I saw it happen, it's like, that's absolutely cool. But that's what happens when people have the advanced stages, and they just slip in and out all the time.
Yeah, it's I had an aunt that passed away. It's been 5 years, and she lived to be 90. Actually, she died 2 days or 3 days before her 92nd birthday. She led a really good life. She really went downhill quick, though. It started with she was still driving. She was still going out with friends, doing everything. She lived by herself, and she ended up getting a stomach infection, a cold that turned into a stomach infection, and she ended up in a special care facility because there was really not much they could do for her. And she really went downhill fast. From being able to drive and go to dinner and take care of herself to basically being in a wheelchair occurred within a 3-week period. And she was very confused right toward the end. I was there actually the day before she passed away. I flew back to Chicago. But what was interesting is she was very confused while she was in this place. But the day before she died, just as you'd mentioned, everything came back. It was like she could remember what she did 70 years ago. It was amazing. Matter of fact, the one nurse said, wow, it's just like a miraculous turnaround. She was a very young nurse. And then a more seasoned, experienced nurse that had worked with people in this condition said, it's not a turnaround, it's the end. And
right.
She passed away 4 o'clock in the morning the next morning.
Yeah, that's usually what happens is they will become, they'll get better all of a sudden, and then, for a day or two, and then they'll die. That's what happens. It's like we're giving you this chance to be coherent and to say goodbye.
Right.
Before the end. But, everyone has an exit point. Everybody has an exit time.
Mm-hmm.
There's only a few things that are set in stone. The time you come in, the time you go out, and what you want to achieve during that lifetime.
Right.
You know, whether you want to be a doctor, nurse, ballerina, whatever. Those are the things that are set in stone. It's not like the movie Heaven Can Wait, you know, you get taken out before your time sort of thing, you know. But
Right.
it does, you know, it's amazing. You know, like I said, I've been in medicine for, February, it'll be 40 years.
Wow. So you've seen it
And
all.
I've seen a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I died in 1988 in a motorcycle accident.
Wow.
I was on my way to teach my now husband how to ride a motorcycle because I had been riding for years. And a woman ran a red light and hit me on the bike. And there was a police officer a couple cars back saw it happened. When he got to me, I had no pulse, and so I was like clinically dead for 2 minutes. But during that time, I crossed to the other side, and it was like really cool. And they said, you know, my grandma and grandpa were there, and they said, you know, it's not your time. You're going to have a son in 2 years. And I had just met my husband, so I wasn't even thinking about marriage. But she says, you need to go back. Well, when you cross like that, they make you relive your life, all of your lives, back to the soul, you know, the original soul. But I told him, I said, I know, it's not my time. I have things to do. I have a lot to do. And so I came back, and poor police officer was looking very relieved when I started breathing again.
I could imagine.
But, you know, for years I've been, you know, some people in the old country, we're from like Ireland and stuff, they have people that they call demon seers, people that can see demons, talk to them, and remove them. And so I've been doing that for about 20 years. My grandmother trained me from the other side. And I always have Michael, the archangel, with me. He said, you know, he told me when I was dead, during that incident when I was dead, that he had always been with me in all my other lives, and he wouldn't leave me in this one either. So he would be by me and help me do this, because this is what God wanted me to do. So I started doing that, like I said, 20-some years ago, and I just keep going.
Very, very interesting. You know, I think one thing is that I find out, and I think a lot of people do. Of course, I know I've heard the term. A lot of people say we all have psychic abilities. I can say that I've never experienced them to the degree that you have. Some people have said, well, you haven't because you haven't let the walls down. You haven't done the you haven't let the wall. You haven't let the walls down to let it come in. But the one thing I think that I find interesting, and a lot of people do too, June, is as we get older, we get less fearful of death. I think that when we're in our 20s, and everybody experiences this differently, but, you know, when we're teenagers and we're in our 20s, that's the last thing we think about. And it actually scares us. I think it scares us because it's the fear of the unknown. You know, I remember one time, I think it was 17 or 18 years old, you know, and I read this story in a book. It was just a short story about this kid that had died. He had passed away in an accident, and all he remembered is he was at his wake, and the casket was closed, and he was in this casket for eternity. But yet he was he was conscious in this hole in the ground. That in itself is terrifying to me. But as we get older, and as we get more open-minded and hearing these type of stories, hearing these type of experiences and stuff like that, it's not as scary anymore. I would say that maybe to some degree as we get older, it's something that we look forward to.
I agree. It's, we have, the older you get, the more you realize that, in the end you'll go home. You go to the other side. And for me, having that, experience with being dead already, I don't fear death. I have no problem with that. I'll have to terrorize my son after I cross. I warned him already.
Do you believe Do you believe? Well, you did mention this about things that are written in stone, June. Uh, do you think that we've picked out our life path maybe several times?
Oh yeah, we've lived. I've lived hundreds of times. Everybody lives as many lives as they want to. And I had my son ask me one day. He said, "Mom," he says, "what is the meaning of life?" He says, "I bet you know." And I said, "It's simple." I said, "The meaning of life is experience. It's all, the only reason we come back time and again is to experience things that we've never experienced before. Like, say, you came in to die of cancer or get hit by a truck or have children, and you think to yourself, what kind of an idiot would want to die from cancer or get hit by a truck?" But when you're on the other side, none of that equates. You don't think about the pain. You don't think about the people you leave behind. None of that matters. It's all about the experience.
Interesting. Is there ever a point in time, June, where you sit back and go, I don't want to go around again. I want to stay where I'm at over here?
Sure, a lot of people tell me, "You know what, I'm tired of this. I'm not ever coming back." And that's the physical mind speaking. That's not the spiritual mind. The spiritual consciousness has a whole different agenda. You say, "I'm sick and tired of it. I've had too many bad lives. I ain't coming back again." And then you die, and you're on the other side, and you're like, "Wow, that was a bummer life. Let me try one where I live in Hawaii and I'm a millionaire."
Interesting. Tell us about our book. Tell us about your books, June. You've got a few books out.
Yeah, the first one is called The Medium's Guide to the Paranormal. It gives a little background on my life and how I developed my abilities and how how my grandma helped me and stuff, and it also talks about. It's got a chapter on ley lines. It's got a chapter on ghosts, spirits, demons, past lives, religion. It's just a world of basic information, because I put it in such a way that people that know nothing about the paranormal or any of these topics will learn something, and even the people that know about them will learn something. You never stop learning. The second book I wrote was called Paranormal Encounters. It's stories about my real paranormal encounters, real-life paranormal encounters. And the second one, Paranormal Encounters, Book 2, is some more of those. And the last one is called The Dark Side of the Paranormal. So many people have asked me over the years about, there's no information about demons, minions, shadow people, negative. I have so many questions. In fact, I did a Body, Mind, and Spirit Expo the beginning of last year.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to do a lecture. And everybody wanted me to do a lecture about, the light worker and stuff like that. And I had been going to those, those expos for years. And I told my friends, I said, no, I'm going to do a lecture on the dark side of the paranormal. I said, because people always ask. And so when I got into the lecture room, it was like wall-to-wall bodies. I've never seen so many. People were standing in the back. I'm like, okay. And so many people after that came by and thanked me so much for giving lecture about it, because, it's always been basically a taboo thing. The people that do Reiki have this thing that they think that if you talk about it, you're going to draw the dark ones to you. But that's not it. They'll find you if they want you. They have no problem. You don't need to draw them. They'll be there. The thing is, it can happen to anybody. Encounter people that investigate, like I do, belong to the paranormal team. If you're lucky enough never to have an encounter with a negative of any kind, that's wonderful. I'm all for it. But unfortunately, you have to go in to an investigation like, prepared. You have to go in with protection to know that, okay, just in case, I'm going to be ready, I'm going to be protected, so that no problem. But this book tells you about, it actually puts them in 3 different categories: demons and lesser demons, shadow people, and earthbound negatives. And working to remove them for years, I have learned their fears, their weaknesses, and, their attributes, what they can do, what they can't do. I mean, this is, and then I go to the myths behind what will protect you, what won't protect you. A lot of people think that if you wear a cross, you're good. But that's not true. You have to have the image of Jesus on the cross, and it cannot be an abstract rendering. It has to be an image. And people think, I've heard people say, oh, get some brake dust and sprinkle it around and it'll keep people from coming in. And it's like, really? It won't do anything for my car, But there are so many myths out there about what will protect you and what won't. In the book, I put down the real things that will help to protect you. There's nothing that's absolute. I'll tell you that right now. I wish I could say that there's something that's absolute. But, these things will help. Using the things that I tell people will help.
Well, and that's a good point that you bring up about a cross or whatever. If you don't have the belief in it, it's just another material object.
Right.
A cross is just a I don't say that in a bad way, but it's just a piece of wood if you don't
Exactly.
believe in what it represents.
Right. You have to have the absolute faith. On the other side, thought manifests. When you're on the other side, you think and it happens, or you think and it is. Thought manifests. If you have the belief and the absolute conviction, no problem. It's like when I go in to remove a demon. Michael, the archangel, is always with me. I'm never alone. And, I may have a lot of doubts about other things in my life, but when I go in to remove something like that, there's absolutely no doubt. You cannot have any doubts because they know. They read your mind. They know you're coming before you know you're coming.
Right.
But unfortunately, or fortunately for me, demons are stupid because they judge by the outward appearance. They think that I'm, just another human, and they just laugh about it. But then when I go in, they're not laughing for long.
Right.
And, you have to have that faith in order to remove them. Because they'll know. They find every little chink in your armor. Like I said, they can make you see them as they want you to perceive them. They'll look into your mind and find your weak spot. Like me, I hate spiders. So, some of them try to appear as spiders, these creepy, crawly things, big, ugly things. But, I can see through that. I see to their true form. But that's what they do. They reach into your mind and say, oh, you're afraid of bears, you're afraid of, your image of the devil is going to be horns and pitchfork and stuff, so that's how I'm going to show myself.
Yeah, exactly.
But then you also have the earthbound negatives that were nasty in life and nasty in death. And they can also make you see them the way they wish to be perceived. Maybe in life they were a fat, squatty, balding man. And when they're dead, there's like, I'm going to show myself as a 6-foot shadow man.
Right. What do you think creates the evil, June? I mean, what do you think? Do you think it's? I've heard people sometimes define it as it's to keep things in balance. There's got to be black and white. There's got to be good. There's got to be bad. What do you think maybe demons isn't the right word, but the evil. What do you think the evil? Why is it there? What creates it? Do we tie it to Satan or a figure we call Satan? Or
some of it is, man holds 99.9% of the negativity in the world. Man creates it. I mean, there it is. But the ones that people give names to and call like demons, they were the fallen. They are the fallen angels. When there was the big, war, quote unquote, between heaven and hell, all it was, we used to have physical bodies before we became pure energy. So what happened was we traveled over the galaxies for millennia. And one day, we decided that we wanted to have physical bodies again. A lot of the souls said, you know what? We want to have children. We want to feel love. We want to have physical bodies again. And then there were the other half that really didn't want to have nothing to do with it. It's like, we don't want it. We don't want to be subject to aches and pains and growing old and, any of that. We don't want it. We're not having it. So that's what started the whole, uproar. So when it settled down and Michael was the one who disarmed Satan and Ariel was the one who disarmed his son. So when that was over, God said to him, I'm going to give you exactly what you want. You're never going to be able to take physical form again. And they were happy with that. It's like, good, we're not going to be physical, but you cannot live in the light. You'll have to live in darkness. And they, over the, millennia, they got mad and angry, and so they want to strike out at anyone, any soul that becomes, that can become physical. Any soul of light, they don't like, and that's what that's all about. They come here trying to cause problems, trying to make the physical person be miserable, and in some cases commit suicide. They feed off of negative energy. So, it's just the way they are, and you can't change them. Although Azrael went down, and he's still there. He was one of the archangels that went down to try to convert anybody back to the light. So if anybody wanted it, they could come to him.
Gotcha. June, we got to take a quick break to pay the light bill here. Our guest tonight for this hour is psychic and paranormal researcher and author June Lundgren. It's an honor to have her on the program. All right, everybody, welcome back to Fringe Radio. Our guest for this hour is June Lundgren. June, again, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So you are part of a paranormal research team, correct?
Right, yeah.
And that's up in the Pacific Northwest?
Yeah, I live in Oregon City, and the group is between, right in the Portland metro area. And we are called Northwest Paranormal Investigative Team.
Interesting. Are there a lot of haunted locations? Well, that's a bad term. Is there a lot of are there a lot of yeah, I guess that is a good term. Is there a lot of locations with paranormal activity?
Yes, there's a lot of private homes, but there's also a lot of, like the old hospital, the old psych hospital, which has since been demolished, had a lot of paranormal activity. The Shanghai tunnels, I'm not sure if you've heard of those.
No, I have not.
They're in downtown Portland. They're the old tunnels that they used to Shanghai sailors. It was like right on the port of Portland. And they filled that in years ago, and all the tunnels have recently been excavated, and they're actually going to open this year a new set of tunnels that they found underneath the existing city. And when our group went in there, we're the official paranormal investigative group for the Shanghai tunnels. But when we went in and did a walkthrough, it's like I had never been there before. So I went and walked through, and we finished our tour, and then we went to the museum, which is around the corner. And I asked the guy that's the program director and the conservator for the tunnels. I said, well, how long have you had the demons down there? And he's like, he pulled me over to the side. He's like, I don't want anybody to know about that. I said, somebody has been using seances and a Ouija board down there. I said, and that's what brought the demons in. And he says, I've been being attacked every time I go down there. My legs, there's claw marks all over my legs. He says, my illnesses are getting worse. I said, yeah, that's what demons do. And he said, I said, I can remove them for you if you'd like. And he's like, please. So we went back about a week later and removed them. Yep.
Look, actually, one of our listeners sent in a question to get your thoughts on Ouija boards and some of those things. What is your take on that? What do some people say it's nothing more than a Milton Bradley game. Other people say you're playing with your life. Other people are on the fence. What's your take on it, June?
Over the years, it's been, I've seen a lot of stuff with the Ouija boards and stuff like that. Anytime you do a seance, anytime you use a Ouija board, it opens a door to the other side. It's like a miniature portal, and it opens to the other side. If you do it correctly, if you do it with protection, if you're going to use a Ouija board, if you put a crucifix on it, wipe it down with holy water, and keep a Bible on the board, then it's okay because nothing negative can come through. But if you don't do it with protection or respect, then, you're liable to get anything because these negatives will lie to you and they'll tell you they're somebody that you know, or they'll come on as a child. Same thing with seances. They love to do that sort of thing so they can get they can get you to open up and bring them over. It's a doorway, and once you open it, you have to close it. So many people will have a seance and then not close the door, and that's where these two demons came in, because they did the seance and they used the Ouija board, and these things came in.
And I also would assume, just as you mentioned, which is really a good point, like you said, wearing a cross. You have to believe and have the faith and the insight to go ahead and if you're going to wear it, it's not there because, oh, look, I'm wearing a cross or whatever. It's kind of like carrying a gun. If it's not loaded, it doesn't do you much good. But I would assume that a Ouija board probably is the same way. If it's maybe played with in fun or what have you, but I would assume that if you're in the mood, if you're in that dark mood, if you're looking for something to happen and you use those tools, that's where something probably is going to happen, and maybe you open up something that you just can't close, or you get in so high, so deep over your head, you can't believe you're in that position.
Yeah, because once you use it one time, then you draw spirits to you. It's like, Michael tells me, it's like lighting a candle in the dark. Things are going to be drawn to it because they're curious. They see there's a light, they're going to come over. And the more often you do it, the more you draw them in.
Interesting.
I don't care whether it's good or whether it's bad. You have to be respectful and you have to be mindful.
Right. We hear the term so often, June, about people, trying to get people to go to the light. Just like in any town, any city, any place all over the world, there are these locations like the tunnels you talked about. Here in Utah, in Salt Lake City, we have some areas where there's high paranormal activity. There's actually one that is over in the next valley over. It's actually the old wing of the Tooele County Hospital that is since closed down. Actually, a paranormal research group leases the property, and they do investigations. They allow people to experience paranormal investigations around Halloween and stuff. It's used as a haunted house and stuff. I'm kind of on the fence on that, to be honest with you, because I've never been there. But the people that have gone there for the paranormal experience, 99% of them, something happens. They feel something, they see something. Okay, I guess what I'm getting at is that we always hear this term of helping these spirits go to the light. At this place, in the Tooele County Hospital, in the old wing of the hospital, there are spirits. There's a girl there. There's a child there that if summoned, she will appear. Maybe through the form of a whisper in your ear, touching you, laughter. Again, a lot of non-believers have gone there and they come out and they're like, oh my God, I mean, there's something there. And it's not a put on by any means. What about these spirits that, like this young girl that's been there for years, she doesn't want to go to the light? Are there some people that cross and they want to hang out in a particular place?
Yeah, there are some, but you'll find that if you went to this place, that you'll find there are a couple of portals there, and they come and go at will. But the thing is, I'm one of those people that if you have a child trapped, if a child is trapped or any soul is trapped, why wouldn't you do something to help them? I have seen places that won't do anything to help them because, hey, it draws in people, they make money off of it, and you have to get my permission if you want to cross anybody over. We need them here to turn tricks for us. Mm-hmm. I don't believe in that stuff. If I get a spirit that comes to me and they tell me they want help crossing over, hey, I don't even give it a second thought. It's their decision. It's not the physical world's decision like, oh, no, if she leaves, I'm not going to make a lot of money.
Right. Well, and that's why I'm kind of on the fence. I'm not on the fence as far as having, I feel that all paranormal researchers, the majority of the ones that I've met in person locally and throughout the country and interviewed, I believe that most paranormal researchers are not doing it for a hobby. They may be curious, but it's just like anything. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. It can be a very emotional thing, working with families, working with individuals. It's not there for a game. When you throw a haunted house sign up on top of it, I think now you've crossed the line because now you're using something to profit from, and you're using a person, whether alive or on the other side or not in this dimension, for part of your profitability. I don't think that's right. I have a real problem with that.
I do too. I like I said, if I go somewhere, I don't care whether it's famous or not, and they have, we have these ghosts here or whatever. It's like, you know what? If the spirit comes to me and they want to cross, I'm going to cross them over.
Have you, through all your years of doing this, have you run into spirits, entities, souls, whatever we want to call it? I kind of call it the essence of an individual. Right. Have you come across some that don't realize that they've passed away, that they feel that they're still alive and maybe something strange is happening?
Yeah, in fact, I went to visit a friend in La Grande, Oregon, and she took me over to a friend of hers house, and I said, wait a minute. I said, there's a spirit here that doesn't know they're dead, And so I went in straight for where I saw the guy sitting, and I said, you're dead, right? And he says, yeah, it took me a long time to figure that out. And I said, well, tell me what happened. So he said, suddenly my chest got tight, and I think I just blacked out. He said, and then when I woke up, he says, he lived by himself, so, he went on as if nothing had happened. I explained to him what happened is, I said, you died. And I said, that blackness is shock. It's like a shock in a living person. You go into the blackness when you woke up. I said, the only reason that you thought you were still alive is because you didn't see your body. They took your body away a long time ago. And he's like, oh, that's what happened. And I'm like, yeah. He said, I realized afterwards what had happened when my son and my daughter-in-law were talking and said, they were going to rent out the house. And he said, but this is my house and I'm not leaving. And I told him, I said, that's fine. I said, but the problem is, you don't belong here anymore. I said, what about your wife? I said, your wife and your parents. I said, don't you want to see them again? I finally convinced him to cross, but he was worried about his home, that somebody wasn't going to take care of it and give it the love that he would give it.
Right.
But the couple that was there he actually didn't bother them. He would chase off the other renters that happened. But he says, I like the two women that are here now. He said, they take care of my house. They respect it. I said, you see, your house is in good hands now. You can go. Right. It's just the way it is. Then you get souls that are stuck in their death state, where, they haven't moved on from the actual death. So they appear as they were, like this one guy. He's all bloodied and everything because he was in a car accident and he got sliced open and he died. And so the guy is still stuck in his death state looking like that. I said, you need to move on, man. Yeah. I hope to move on, but it's like, really?
I would assume that if some of these spirits have been hanging around for a while, if you will, and move on, it's got to be a new adventure for them. It's I mean, the whole thing could be, like you said, with this one gentleman not really knowing that he had passed away, and was just kind of caught, caught in limbo. He didn't know what was happening.
Yeah, and it's like, they don't quite know where to go or what to do. That's why I don't go to graveyards, because they're drawn wherever I go. So, it's like I have to, I always draw a big crowd of spirits. So
there's someone who can talk to us and someone can see us.
Yep, and so, like I said, they know you're coming before you know you're coming.
Exactly.
But I try to help as many as I can.
June,
that's part of my job.
We've got to wrap up in a little bit. Why don't you give our listeners, again, your books and where they can get them?
Okay, the first book is A Medium's Guide to the Paranormal, and then there's Paranormal Encounters, and then Paranormal Encounters Book 2, and then there is my latest one called The Dark Side of the Paranormal. You can get them anywhere that books are sold online. They are in print as well as ebooks on Amazon or Smashwords or through Apple. So any of those places will have them.
And again, your website is mysticconnections.com if somebody wants to connect with you.
It's mysticconnections.org.
I'm sorry. And wants to connect with you and use your services and have you help them out, they can go out there and get in contact and touch with you there.
Yes, they can. There's a site. There's a page that says contact, and the email will go straight to me, and I will answer.
Sounds great. Well, I want to thank you. The hour went too quick, and I would love to get you back on again down the road. I want to thank you for giving up time on your Saturday evening to be with us and share your work and your stories and your experiences.
Yes, I loved it. I always love talking to people about that sort of thing.
Well, and people, they love it too. They want to absorb it. June, thank you so much again, and have a great weekend, and God bless you and your family.
God bless you too. You have a great weekend.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
Take care, my friend. Good night.